everybody for joining us. Sorry, we're getting started just a little bit late. So my name is Serena Barnett, and I am the Enrichment Systems Administrator. I oversee the online subscription package. And I know many of you have a lot of questions. You're having difficulties accessing your subscriptions through Clever, and the email confirmations you receive might be a little misleading or confusing. So I'm here to kind of help clear up some of that information, give you some updates, and share some good news and some maybe not so good news, but kind of just to keep you up to date and posted. So going next on the next screen, what I'd like to start with is the good news. So the good news is that after a little bit of time, the following subscriptions are working if your subscriptions were marked processed in the EOS as of 8/15. So the following subscriptions that are working are Adobe Creative Cloud, Beast Academy Online, Grammarly, iExcel, Kids Discover Online, Minecraft Education Edition, Time for Learning, Tinker, and Typing Agent. So you'll see the little asterisks next to Beast Academy, Minecraft, and Time for Learning, and I will discuss those in a moment. But what I'd like to do is show you really quick, how do I know when my subscriptions were processed and whether they fall into this category. So if you submitted your subscriptions on or before the 14th of August, then your subscriptions were processed the very wee early morning hours of the 15th. So that's when we began the processing for the subscriptions. Now, I think what was a little misleading or misunderstanding for some of our families is that by marking the subscriptions process, that's what we have to do in order to get that process going, but it still did take time to set those subscriptions up. So although there were a couple that had instant access, like Minecraft Education went out immediately without any hiccups, most of the other subscriptions took a lot of time to get set up because we have to pull the reports, send those to the vendors, get the vendors to create the subscriptions, and then get everything synced up in Clever. So as part of our trial and errors prior to launching the online subscription package, we didn't experience the same hiccups that we did when we actually launched. So regrettably, we ran into a lot of hiccups as we launched, and we were finding that there was a significant delay through some of the vendors. So when the subscriptions got set up, they weren't coming through in the 24 or 48 hours that we originally anticipated. So, and then I diverged. So in order to see when your subscriptions were processed or if they were processed, is to find your student. If I go back here really quick, find your student in the online subscription package portal, which is that little clipboard with the checkbox on the left-hand side. Find your student, and then you can click on the view button. And then from the view button, it will tell you the status of your subscription. So if they were processed, it will say processed here. If they are not processed, and it says like processing, right, Joe, the status is processing, I believe, is the temporary.
It'll say pending.
There we go. Thank you. So if it says pending, then your subscriptions haven't actually been processed yet. That means that they were submitted after we pulled our reports. So they haven't been set up yet, and you won't be able to access those until we actually go through the processing of those subscriptions. So first, you want to make sure it says processed, and then you want to see down here below what date those subscriptions were marked processed. So as you can see here, all of these were dated for yesterday. And so these are not part of that 8/15 batch that I'm referring to. So only the subscriptions that were marked processed on 8/15 that are listed here are working. So the good news is those are now working. And going back to the list, so the ones that are asterisked here, those are not compatible with Clever. And we didn't find that out until after we launched. So those subscriptions, which I have a couple others as well, they will not be in your Clever dashboard. So the confirmation emails that you received automatically from the system when we marked them processed gave you your Clever login information. Regrettably, that won't work for those subscriptions because it's just not compatible with Clever. So those subscriptions will need to be accessed directly. You will receive an email from the vendor, and the other subscriptions, there's 2 other ones that are also not compatible, which would be Accelerated Reader and Adventure Academy, which I actually didn't list on here. It is also working, Adventure Academy. But those ones, you'll have to look for the email from the vendor with your login information for those. And that would, again, only be if your subscriptions show up as processed on the 15th, okay? And so those 5 subscriptions that are not compatible are Accelerated Reader, Adventure Academy, Beast Academy Online, Minecraft Education Edition, and Time for Learning. What I'd like to point out for Time for Learning is some families are still having a hard time with Time for Learning. The emails went out, so Time for Learning did send those email notifications last week. What we're now discovering and kind of troubleshooting some of the issues that our families are experiencing is that when the subscription was requested, there was a prompt for an alternate email address. And a few people were under the impression that the alternate email address didn't matter. And so they just put in anything just to get past that field. Regrettably, that field did matter for some of you, especially if you had an existing Time for Learning account, and Time for Learning wasn't able to kind of merge that and take it over for the OSP. So that email was important, and we were finding that a few families didn't get the email because it either went to another email address that they aren't aware of, or they put in the wrong email address, or they just like made up an email address. So we're working on with Time for Learning to get those issues fixed. So that's another thing I want to point out. If a subscription did require an additional email address, then you can verify what email address you submitted for those subscriptions in this section right here where it says student or alternate email address. So if I come in here, I see that Adobe Creative Cloud could have potentially been set up under this alternate email address if there were any issues with the email address that was selected when the subscription was submitted, which is up here. So the parent account details or the parent email that the subscription would have been set up under would be test parent in this case. And then if it needed to be set up under an alternate email, that email would have been listed here for those that required it. So if you requested Time for Learning and you did not get your email, first double check your spam folder, because oftentimes those emails go to spam. And then if you still don't have the email from Time for Learning and you checked your spam folder, I would log into your student's account on the OSP dashboard and just check if and what email you used to submit for the alternate email, and then check that email. So if you provided an email that happens to be wrong or it's not something that you have access to, then you can contact our OSP team and they will work with Time for Learning to get that corrected for you. On that note, I will advise or kind of let you know that the OSP team is really inundated right now with calls and emails. So the calls are coming in pretty much every second. So as soon as they get off a call, there's another call coming in, and they have just over 600 emails right now. So there's only a few people, and I've had to borrow from other teams that I oversee to try to help meet the demand for that. Regrettably, though, we're just not able to get to the answers as quickly as possible. So if you do need to reach out to the OSP team by phone or by email, please, I appreciate your patience in advance while they really work hard to get responses out to you, but it may be a little bit of a delay on that. So I appreciate your patience and understanding in that situation. So again, these 5 subscriptions are not compatible with Clever. Even though you received an email notification from the EOS giving you, or advising you to go to Clever with that login, that will not apply, and we didn't find that out until after we actually launched. So we do apologize for that confusion. We are working to get that updated and updated emails sent out, and trying to get all of this fixed for you. So we appreciate your patience on that as well. So again, and I apologize, let me just add this in there because it's not listed, which would be Adventure Academy. So Adventure Academy is also working. So add that there. Now, if you requested any other subscriptions not listed here, because we did have quite a few this year, we had over 25 options this year. Regrettably, there were quite a few hiccups. Again, one, what I mentioned, if you're tuning in late, was some of our vendors are taking a wee bit longer to get those subscriptions set up and then synced through Clever. And so it's taking longer than the 24 and 48 hours that we originally anticipated. And then there were some other unknown or glitches that we're finding out now as we contact our vendors to say, hey, our families are having a hard time accessing the subscriptions. Can you help us on this? And we're trying to get all that solved. So as we're doing that, we're finding that there were some other issues, and we are working very, very hard with the vendors to get those fixed. So in the meantime, any subscription that's not on this list that you may have signed in for, I do apologize, but those will not be available right now. And we're working on getting kind of an ETA on each of those individual subscriptions. And we'll hopefully have information to send out to you shortly. And we'll send an email to everybody, hopefully today, tomorrow morning at the latest, I would anticipate, but we're working really hard to get that information out to you today. So moving on, now that I've covered those two things, the third thing I want to point out, and this is what we're finding a lot of families having a hard time with, is Clever and their mobile device access. So we do have a lot of users that use either like a smartphone, or they use an iPad, or they use like a tablet. And there is a Clever app that can be downloaded. Now, what's happening is if you open the Clever app, it will prompt you to enter your username and password. And then when you click on that to, enter your username and password, it takes you to a web browser in your mobile device. And so if you log into the Clever platform using the email that you got, or sorry, using the username and password that you received in the email confirmations, what's happening is then you get logged in on the mobile device, but the mobile device isn't compatible with the way Clever is set up to be used on the web browser. So even though it works from a computer, it doesn't work from a mobile device browser the same way. And so what we're finding is it's not then taking you back to the app, because then if you go back to the app, now that you've logged in, it's cyclical. It makes you do the same process all over again. So we've reached out to Clever. They are working on that issue right now. So what I can say is that right now it's not compatible with a mobile device. They are working on that. So you would need to log into Clever from a computer in order to access those subscriptions that are synced through Clever. Now, for the subscriptions, again, there are the ones that aren't listed here. They might be on your dashboard when you log in, but they're not actually synced up, or they're not active yet. So that's why there's that kind of disconnect. There are a couple other ones that they are working. It's like, so for instance, Schmoop, some of you might have signed up for Schmoop. So the student accounts are activated and those are ready to go. The challenging part is that the parent accounts are slightly different. And what we're finding is that the parents are having a hard time figuring out how to set up their accounts. And it requires a magic word, which we have to be very careful about sharing, because that kind of opens the door for possible issues. So we're trying to work on getting the parent accounts automatically created for you. And then if that's not a possibility, we are working on a video that will help walk you through that process, so that you can figure out how to access your student or add them to your classroom. If you're an HST and you're logging in, same thing. You'd be able to set up your own classroom and then add the students in there. So we're working on getting those further details for you. So although Schmoop is technically working, the parent access or the teacher access is the element that's missing for many people. So we're working on getting that fixed as well. Sadly, I don't have, and that's where the bad news is that I don't have any further information, like I said, on the ETAs. We were hoping that they would all be, kind of ironed out by now, but as we're reaching out to the vendors to work on these things, we're finding it's taking us a little bit more time to get those issues resolved. So again, we apologize for the frustration and the inconvenience that may cause you. For those of you who are counting on these subscriptions this week, we also were counting on those subscriptions to, roll out seamlessly, and we are working very, very hard to get those issues resolved. So I am going to hop over to the chat box and see. I have thing. What if we haven't received an email from Adventure Academy yet? Processed on the 15th. So you should check your spam folder. That should definitely have come. Everyone that we've processed for, then that email should have come out. So Stephanie, if you want to send us a private message, you can either from the chat box, if you click on the everyone button, select my name, Serena, or Joe, and send us your the email address associated with your student's enrichment account, as well as which student, if you have more than one kiddo. Let us know which student and your email address, and we can try to look into that for you. But if you haven't received it in your main inbox, I would definitely recommend checking your spam folder, and then also just double checking what email address you entered when you requested the subscription. So if you go into the OSP portal and search for your student name, and sorry, it's taking a little time to load here, but by default, I think it goes to district ID, but you can select student name and then type in your student name, although you probably will see it. I see everybody, and that's why I have it filtered this way for privacy purposes. But if you log in, you should automatically see your students in the dashboard, and then click on the view section. And then in the student dashboard here, you should see what email address you used. And so use that to check and see if you can find it. Beast Academy is, so if you're tuning in late, Beast Academy is not compatible with Clever. Oops, sorry, I stopped sharing for a second there. Sorry about that. Okay, so Beast Academy is not compatible with Clever. They just sent out the emails, I believe, yesterday. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were working on that. So they have sent you the email with the information for how to log in and or set up that subscription. So you will look in your inbox for that email. And again, only for those subscriptions that were marked processed on the 15th. So if you log in and you see that your subscriptions are processed, come down below and double check what date they were marked processed. If it says the 20th or any other date than the 15th, then they haven't been set up yet. And there will be a little bit of a delay on that part. So while we work on getting some of these issues resolved first. Let's see here in the chat. Yes, Heidi, I will show that screen. And then Joe, thank you for taking care of the chat. And then when accessing IXL, let me click over to the chat. So the subscriptions that are actively working, again, are Adobe Creative Cloud. They will have sent an email with the link. And then if you click on, you'll have to get that email with your link. And then from Clever, it'll prompt you to log in after downloading that extension on Clever. So there is an extension that you will need to download to enable the password storing, or the username and password storing. And once you log in the first time on Adobe, once you log in the first time for Adobe through Clever, it'll save your username and password and you won't have to use that again. But there is a separate email from Adobe where you have that. And then Adventure Academy, that again, if your subscription was processed on the 15th, you should have received an email from the vendor. That subscription will not be available in Clever. You will not see it on your dashboard, and you will not be able to access it through Clever. Adventure Academy is actually a download, so it gets downloaded to your computer, or you download the app on a mobile device, and that subscription functions in that capacity. So there is no way for it to be compatible with Clever. Beast Academy Online, I believe, is a little bit similar. It might be web-based, but it is like an app that's specifically online through their portal. So that is also not available through Clever, and you will receive an email from Beast Academy with the instructions for that subscription separately. Grammarly is also working through the Clever dashboard. IXL is also working. So as of yesterday, there were like a lot of issues with it, and Joe worked really, really hard to get that fixed today. So IXL, we are happy to report, is working. If you are still experiencing issues with it, there could have been an issue with the report in terms of your particular account. So you can definitely reach out to the OSP team and we will look into that for you. Kids Discover Online is also working. On that note, you will receive a separate email from Kids Discover with your classroom code. So you will need to get that email with the classroom code in order to set up your subscription. Minecraft Education Edition, kudos to our tech department who helped process that one and got those emails out to you all last week. And so that one went off without a hitch, and I am so happy to say that. So that one is also something that is working, and you should have received an email with that information. And then Time for Learning as well. Same thing, you should have received an email from Time for Learning with your username and password and login information if your subscription was marked as processed on the 15th. So if you did not get that email, what we have found for a few people is that they submitted an alternate email address and they aren't checking the alternate email address, and or if they submitted an alternate email address, they didn't put the right one, or they just put some random one because they didn't think that that section was important. So then the subscription didn't get set up because that email address wasn't in there. So I will say that Time for Learning is working. Double check your email, check your spam folder. Make sure you're also checking the alternate email section. If you put in an alternate email and you don't find it there, let us know. And then Tinker and Typing Agent are also working. Okay, let's see. If I'm trying to access iExcel directly using the username and password in the Inspire email, it also says no associated username. Right, so the Inspire email was an like an auto response, and the username and password in that email is actually for Clever specifically. So that won't necessarily be the same username and password that iExcel account was set up with. So that you won't be able to use that email or the username and password in that email to set it up. We are working with all of the vendors to make sure that they sent out a separate email with the username and password information so that that is available for those that do not want to use Clever or cannot use Clever. Then we are working on that. So not all of the vendors did that. So we are working really hard to get that done as well. But some of them sent emails and some of them didn't. So we're trying to ascertain who did and who didn't so we can work on that as well. But yes, Tracy, that username and password is strictly for Clever and may not work for your iExcel account. One thing I could recommend, which is working for a couple of the subscriptions, is if you know what email you used when you requested the subscription, either the parent or the alternate email, you can go to the website and use the forgot password option and enter your email address and see if that doesn't work. So that might also be an option you can try in the meantime. It says, I am missing a student under my parent account. Who do I contact to help get this figured out? Thank you, Julianne, for joining us. You would need to contact your homeschool teacher regarding that issue, and they would be able to look into that for you. And then Heidi says, one of my students is processed date of 9/15. I believe you meant 8/15, Heidi, for one of their subscriptions. Does it mean it will not be processed until then?
Hey, I can jump in here really
yeah,
fast.
thanks.
So as far as when we process the orders, it does say 9/15, Heidi. Yes, it does.
Oh, that's
however,
weird.
we actually, when we go in and process the orders, we manually type in processed on and the date. So when we were processing on August 15th, I think there were one or two subscriptions that say September 15th. That's not the correct information. So we apologize for the typo, and we know it's confusing, but your subscription was processed in August.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Joe. So maybe the remarks maybe aren't a good, I didn't realize that. So thanks for clarifying and clearing that up. So maybe ignore the remarks in that case, and then look at the actual timestamp. So then the timestamp here would have the correct date because this is system generated. So whatever timestamp was marked in this case. And regrettably, I don't have another demo account that has processed subscriptions from the 15th to show you, but then you can look at the date updated and that would have the correct date there. So I apologize, the remarks are incorrect for a couple of the subscriptions. So in that case, go ahead and focus on this, this first column right here for the process date. All right. So we do hope to have more information out for everybody. We will be saving this recording and posting it to our online subscription handbook. So that is another invaluable resource that we really are trying to redirect everyone to, both our families and our teachers. So on the announcements page of the online subscription handbook, we have the recording from our Monday session for the office hours, where we kind of troubleshooted some issues. And then it has updates. So as of today, these are the most recent updates. So here is a link to like the more information on Clever. So those who want to figure out how Clever works, we have the written instructions. We also have a video tutorial. So there's a link there. And then there's the message, which I've communicated with you all in here, is all subscriptions marked processed on 8/15 have been submitted to the vendors to be created. So you should have received an automatic, an auto-generated email from the enrichment ordering system that alerted you that the subscription was processed. Now, on that note, like I mentioned earlier, is that the system automatically marks it as processed, but there is still a lot of work that goes into actually creating the subscriptions. So even though it shows process, the actual activation or creation of the subscription isn't instantaneous. And there's a lot of steps that we have to go through, as well as the vendor, to get those set up. So we did work on updating the new email response so that it can be a little bit clearer in terms of, it's showing its process, but we're actually in the process of setting it all up. So that will help kind of, down the road. So we do apologize that it didn't help you right now. And then it is taking, like I said, several of our vendors a bit longer to get the subscriptions activated and then synced with Clever. And we're working with the vendors right now to figure out, where they're at in that process so we can have more up-to-date information with you. It's just taking a little bit of a time because we have over 25 vendors that we're working with, and getting in touch with everybody one at one and trying to troubleshoot each situation is taking a little bit of time. And so this family says, my child is not enrolled on Clever. How do I enroll her? So at Clever, there's nothing you have to do. We recreate all the Clever accounts when we activate or when we set up the subscriptions. There's nothing you actually have to do on your end when the subscriptions get processed, and we go through that processing phase. The Clever subscription or the Clever account will be created for both you and your student. So my orders have been processed, but in another area it shows a dash on the status. So let me go back here. So the status, if there's a dash, there actually shouldn't be a dash. In the status here, it should say either pending or processed, right, Joe? It should never have a
it
dash.
Shouldn't have. Yeah, it should be either pending or processed. I'd be interested to take a look at that for you if you want to private message me the district ID. I can take a look at that now.
Yeah, so iPhone user, sorry, I don't have your name on there. That's what's displayed for your name is iPhone. If you want to go into the chat and click on the blue everyone button and then either select myself or preferably select Joe, so he can jump on that right now. But if you select Joe's name and then provide him the email address associated with your student account, he can look that up for you. And if you have more than one kiddo, let us know which student it is and we can look into that. So it shouldn't show a dash. It should either have under the status column here, it should show either processed or pending. I'm wondering if maybe on their student email is where you're seeing the dashes, because that's the only thing I can see here with a dash, would be in the alternate email section. For the subscriptions that didn't require it, there is a dash in that column. But the status section should either show should show pending or processed is the two status options. All right. So again, I'm sorry we don't have more information for you. We are working really, really hard with the vendors to get this launched for you. This is our, job day in and day out. This is our pride and joy. We were so excited to roll out our online subscription package this year because we have so many amazing, great options. Really, really excited. Spent weeks, testing Clever, setting things up, troubleshooting the little things that did come up as we were testing it. And, regrettably, it just didn't happen the way we thought it would happen. And our OSP team is very small but mighty. So it was a party of two. And of the two, actually, and then we added a third person, and because our one person was going out on maternity leave. And so then we went down to a party of two. And so as you can imagine, with 600 emails coming in and calls, they have been a little bit inundated, and I am working on getting reinforcements so that we can provide the best customer service to all of our families. Please know that we are working really, really hard to troubleshoot and solve these problems, and we are genuinely sorry for the frustration and the inconvenience this is causing you. So we just want you to know from the bottom of our heart that we are truly sorry, and we did not anticipate any of these things happening. So I do apologize again. But I appreciate your patience and your graciousness. I know it's the beginning of the school year. I hope all of you are super excited and probably just a little bit nervous and inundated or maybe overwhelmed for those of you who are new to homeschooling this year. If it makes you feel any better, I have 3 kids enrolled with Inspire. I also homeschool, and I have homeschooled since my oldest was in kindergarten, and she is now starting 10th grade. So I can assure you that just take it day by day. It will be okay. The first few days, and even in a regular school, you know, is spent doing review and kind of just getting a hang of the, you know, what the day looks like and what our processes will look like. So take a deep breath and just know that we're in this adventure together. And we will get you on the road just as quickly as we can. And my hope is that we will have a more detailed information or email coming out to everybody within the next few hours, if not by tomorrow morning. So again, I appreciate all of your patience and your understanding. And I wish you all the best in your school year this year. And we are super excited to have you with us. So that is it for today. I do wanted to cut this meeting a little bit short since we don't have additional information and we don't have anything to troubleshoot right now, in light of the fact that the other subscriptions, we're still working on it. So I know many of the families would just jump in and ask us to look into a subscription, which we were doing in the last few days. And we're finding that there's just a little bit more involved. And so we're going to concentrate our efforts in getting those fixed as quickly as we can so that you can get the access that you need. So thank you everybody for joining us. I will put this recording on our OSP handbook. And again, that OSP handbook, if you don't have the link, your teacher should have the link. You can contact your teacher. If you do, email the OSP team. So the email is osp@inspireschools.org or org. And if you email, the auto response will give you a link to the to the OSP handbook. And we have up to the minute announcements and updates here. We have the videos, lots of really great information where we even, you know, put in updates for each specific subscription and what's going on with these particular subscriptions. So like right here, we just found out today about the alternate emails. We kind of added that in there so that we can help avoid some of the challenges that we're finding families are having. So this is really, really your best resource to check first to see, you know, of the subscriptions you requested, you know, where are we at in that process? And then as things get fixed and updated, that will all be updated here and announced on this page. So this is available 24/7. And I definitely recommend everybody come here and check this out. And, you know, even peruse, there's additional great information here. If you didn't select all your subscriptions and you're still trying to figure out which options to select, you have that option as well. You can kind of learn about each of our subscriptions. As you know, there's links to the subscriptions. There's pages with some videos. You know, little overviews. If we have recorded webinars, so several of our vendors did webinar sessions, and we have those recordings here as well, so you can learn about a little bit more about the subscriptions that you selected or you're interested in selecting. So lots of really, really great materials on this OSP handbook for our families. So. All right, well, thank you again for joining us. I do apologize we don't have additional information, but we will work very, very hard to get that out to you. So thank you. I hope you have a great evening. Joe, did you have anything to add before I close it out for today?
That should be it. Yeah, just again, thank you for your patience. And we do appreciate you even bringing your concerns up, because some of the times it's us discovering them and troubleshooting through you. So it is very helpful to hear your concerns and issues.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
I have a parent who is on Chrome and opted in, but she's just doing the a la carte. And for some reason, her purple button isn't activating, like when she's trying to go through the steps. Do you have any other troubleshooting suggestions on why her purple button might not be showing up for the a la carte?
Did she opt out first?
She opted in, and then she was kind of messaging me when I was in a meeting, and so if she opts in and she's on Chrome, there shouldn't be any reason why her purple button shouldn't be there, correct?
So
yeah.
the family has to opt in, and they would have to choose all 5 subscriptions before they can before the a la carte button is going to show up. So they can either opt out and that a la carte button is going to show up automatically, or when they opt in, if they choose 3 subscriptions, it won't show up again until they choose all 5 from the option.
Okay, so it is opt out to do the a la carte, because on one of the directions it said opt in. Okay, so you do.
Well, yeah, Julie.
Okay.
Juliet. So there's actually 2 options. So they can still opt in and do a la carte, but like Joe pointed out, they won't get the a la carte option until they've already selected all 5, because everybody who opts in gets 5 subscriptions. So they need to get all 5 first, and then if they, say somebody wanted, 6 or 7 subscriptions, then they can get the a la
carte. Yeah. But if they only want to do the a la carte, then they just opt out, and then the purple button should show up.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you so much for your help.
No, great question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Oh, we have a chat here. So before I close it out, thanks. So thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody that joined us. If you're joining late, we will put the recording on the OSP handbook. We are going to close it off a little bit earlier today so we can concentrate our efforts to get all of these subscriptions fixed. I know Joe has been absolutely amazing today. He's working really, really hard. He's really literally, we're working around the clock, both Joe and myself, but he's really dedicated his day to getting these issues resolved as quickly as possible. So I have all the praise and thanks to Joe right now. He is the hero, the OSP hero, who is working to make this happen for you. And then we're doing everything we can to get things fixed. So thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.